Hi, everyone. My name is Azat Gündoğan. I'm an urban sociologist from Turkey, teaching for the honors program at Florida State University. City's editorial board asked the authors of the first issue of the 25th volume to prepare a mini video, so we would present the gist of our articles. And this means more outreach within and beyond urban studies. In support of this initiative, I'd like to talk briefly about my paper titled Rethinking Centrality, Extended Urbanization in Istanbul. In this paper, I tackle the center-periphery dynamics under planetary urbanization by focusing on Gebze, the gigantic industrial city just outside of Istanbul's administrative borders. The paper engages with the planetary urbanization, suburbanization debates through an empirical study and has three goals. One is to problematize the predominant emphasis on centrality in urban and regional research, which relegates the socio-spatial and political transformations of the peripheries to the background. This is also an attempt to contribute to planetary suburbanization and urbanization debates. I do that by zooming in on some of the microspaces of peripheral Gebze during the extended urbanization process in greater Istanbul area. Finally, I also attempt to offer an alternative approach to depictions of cities as sentient anthropomorphic actors in a hierarchical and competitive Darwinian ecology. Indeed, when it comes to the global scale of urbanization, we urbanists agree that urbanization processes manifest in various forms. Where our agreement usually ends is with the definition of the term urban. The urban spaces under globalization have challenged the 20th century binary that understood the urban strictly as non-rural centrality. But then comes the question, what does peripherality mean in this context? What about peripheral cities formed and transformed under the imperatives of the so-called global city formation? The growth, like Istanbul's, comprises two concurrent processes. Urbanists has given us great tools to conceptualize these. One is further urbanization, or as Brenner and Schmidt called it, concentrated urbanization in central locations. The other is extended urbanization, as again, Brenner, Schmidt, and Montemor called it, with inspiration from Henry Lefebvre. Roger Kael also examines how urbanists can integrate these disjunct fragments into their analysis under the new urban condition. And by disjunct fragments, he means peripheral areas. We need new approaches to go beyond center-periphery binaries and epistemologies that would not impose terms that used to explain Western cases on non-Western phenomena. So the crux of this model I adopted is that both processes are not antithetical, but dialectical and mutually constitutive. Moreover, they are not necessarily chronological either. Further urbanization and spatial growth co-occur, and urbanists such as Roger Kael have long focused on center-periphery dynamics. In this article, I do not look at Istanbul per se. My focus is on the peripheral city of Gebze, just outside the official borders of Istanbul. I look at the transformation of this small agricultural town into a gigantic industrial center on the outskirts of this megacity, or global city, or world city, however one defines Istanbul, depending on their epistemological position. Briefly, in the post-war era, Istanbul became the center of Turkey's national development model through state-protected import substitution. Gebze's transformation started in this period when the Istanbul-based industry was relocated in the peripheries. Industrialization and population growth gained pace in the aftermath of the liberalization of the Turkish economy in the 1980s. It was in this period when Istanbul appeared on the stage of global cities or city regions. And it became or was considered to be a regional hub for finance, logistics, tourism, and culture at the crossroads of Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. Since then, authorities have promoted Istanbul to attract multinational corporations and devised policies to maintain its capacity for trade, creativity, innovation, and entrepreneurialism. Here you see the map of Greater Gebze area with its sub-districts on the outskirts of Istanbul. Located on the historical Baghdad road from Istanbul to the rest of the Anatolia, and today on the E5 and the trans-European motorways, Gebze has been defined by paths, roads, flows, and mobility of people, commuters, migrants, and factories. These paths brought hundreds of thousands of migrants from all over Turkey. Its natural ports and docks on the city of Marmara and its proximity to the second international airport of Istanbul made Gebze the best location for modern industry. Therefore, Gebze was and still is a part of a spatial texture woven by both nature and social relations. The value ascribed to Gebze as a point of destination and departure has changed over centuries. For example, in 1931, in his notes about Gebze, historian Süheyl Ünver wrote about Gebze underlining its specific locational status during both the Byzantine Empire and the Ottomans. With regards to the Byzantine castle built in Gebze's coastal area, he suggested that the town was organized as a military guard post for Constantinople. The town was also a stopover on the Istanbul-Anatolia route during the Ottoman period. After Istanbul's conquest in 1453, Gebze emerged as a menzil, post town. The Ottoman bureaucrat Koca Mustafa Pasha funded the building of a big caravan inn, which is still intact in downtown Gebze after significant restoration in the early 1970s. You see the picture of this mosque complex. This and other amenities such as an almshouse, hammam, and madrasas were designed by the great architect Sinan. All in all, Gebze was part of a town network that included its villages, districts, and neighboring towns such as Pendik, Kartal, Hereke, Darıca, Tuzla, Diliskelesi. During the reign of Mahmud II, the Ottoman state built a postal route along the menzil system between Istanbul and Izmit in 1834 to 5. Poles were erected every 15 minutes to inform travelers of the distance. These examples show that either as a Byzantium, an Ottoman town, or a gigantic satellite city of Istanbul in contemporary Turkey, Gebze's role in the spatial division of labor within Istanbul's sphere of influence has been defined by its proximity to Istanbul or Constantinople throughout its history. The main routes connecting Istanbul to Anatolia and the further regions of Hijaz and Eastern Anatolia always render the town an important place. In fact, there cannot be a better metaphor to define Gebze's spatial temporality than paths. For example, this aerial picture shows Gebze in the 1950s and its three main streets of the small town, number 2, number 3, and number 4, as you see. On the left is the traditional Baghdad road, which was Constantinople's main trade route to Anatolia in the Ottoman period. It used to bring travelers to the Çoban Mustafa Pasha complex for lodging, as I just described. In the 1960s, the newly built E5 motorway on the far right corner of the picture became the main determinant of the industrial relocation of once Istanbul-based manufacturing industry in town. Gebze's satellite image today shows the historical roads to the city center that are still in use, but the built environment has irrevocably changed in the last 5 decades due to extreme industrialization and migration from all over Turkey. Needless to say, the urbanity of Gebze has not offered much when it comes to the ideal urban amenities of a city. It has offered nothing but environmental degradation and unhealthy environments. And this is a recent picture of the downtown Gebze and the mosque in complex around which is the sea of residential buildings. This is the not so surprising part of the story. The surprising part was that the shining image of such central areas in Istanbul overshadows the urbanity of the residents of peripheral cities like Gebze in the broader Istanbul region, their history, experiences, coping, or in some cases, resistance. We know the end of the story. Istanbul is a third-tier global city or a megacity by now. What we don't know is the peripheral cities as integral parts of this story right from the beginning. Gebze is like the ugly stepsister in this tale of two cities. Well, enough with anthropomorphizing cities. Cities are not human beings in a cutthroat competition for resources. They are social products, and I approach Gebze as such. In other words, extended urbanization and peripheral city formation are the products of exclusionary, exploitative, dispossessive, and authoritarian modes of governance that form around and beyond the areas of concentrated urbanization. And in this case, it's Istanbul. Gebze is the industrial backwater of Istanbul and is simply the result of a series of political decisions and urban and regional planning prioritizing Istanbul. And these plans have intended to push the negative externalities of Istanbul's growth, such as polluting, manufacturing, factories, and environmental issues to Gebze, where the industrial surplus extraction would seamlessly continue. In the article, I provide a local ontology to explain how peripherality is constructed not merely from above and the center by the state or economic actors, but also by the people from below and in the periphery during their everyday rhythms, activities, negotiations, and coping. And eventually, I show how the laboring communities of Gebze render this industrial backwater the center of their lives for decades. So yes, these are some snapshots from my article. I hope readers would find it interesting and informative. Thanks for watching.